In this video, I would like to talk about the controversial topic of the potential impact of the COVID-19 vaccines on pregnancy outcomes. Since pregnant women were excluded from the clinical trials, we do not have any reliable safety data on this very important topic. However, shortly after the vaccination campaigns were started, health authorities debated whether to recommend pregnant women to get vaccinated, and ultimately, essentially based on no data, they recommended to pregnant women to vaccinate, sometimes recommending to postpone vaccination post the first trimester. The lack of safety data motivated the EMA, the health regulatory authority of the European Union, to require from Pfizer to conduct a phase 3 clinical trial with pregnant women. This trial was supposed to enroll thousands of women, but then ended up only with a few hundreds. And in fact, the trial ended on July 2022, but we still did not get any indication about the outcomes. But do we have reasons to be concerned? I believe that most certainly we do. There are multiple indications on potential negative impact of the COVID-19 vaccines on the reproductive systems of both women and men. We know that the COVID-19 vaccines cause frequent and sometimes long-term menses irregularities in women. And while the exact mechanism is not known yet, there are reasons to be concerned that the COVID-19 vaccines have a hormonal impact on the woman's body. There are also studies that show a reduction in the sperm count among men post-vaccination. And again, while the mechanism is not known, and it's not known whether this is just a transient or a long-term impact, we have another reason to be concerned. Additionally, there are many anecdotal reports by medical professionals that claim that they have observed during the vaccination period a significant increase in both maternal and neonatal outcomes among pregnant women. Finally, there are concerning population-level data that suggest a significant decrease in the number of births in many countries throughout 2022, with temporal correlation with the vaccination campaigns. And while there are alternative potential explanations, one has to be concerned from the overall evidence and the overall signals that suggest negative impact by the vaccines on pregnancy outcomes. However, there are numerous studies based on retrospective observational data from periods of time in which pregnant women got vaccinated that compare various maternal and neonatal outcomes of births among vaccinated and unvaccinated women. These studies report what they describe as reassuring results, specifically that the pregnancy outcomes among vaccinated and unvaccinated women seem similar, and therefore the conclusion is that the COVID-19 vaccines do not seem to have any negative impact on pregnancy outcomes. After reading through these papers, I have to say that I do not believe that the results are as reassuring as they claim, and in fact, I believe that they are quite concerning. All of these papers and all of these studies have a fundamental bias that once considered, one should be very, very concerned about their results. I will explain about the nature of this bias in a more lengthy video that I invite you to watch. But let me summarize to you the essence of the bias. All of these studies focus on periods in time in which women are actively vaccinated. Many of them vaccinate in later stages of their pregnancy, often in the third trimester. This implies that their risk to have negative pregnancy outcomes is significantly decreased. And therefore, one would expect that when compared to unvaccinated women, the comparison should be actually favorable towards the vaccinated women. Let me illustrate this point with an analogy from a completely different setting. Suppose that we studied the risk of marathon runners starting a marathon not to finish the race. And also suppose that on the 40 kilometer of the race, there is a station in which runners can pick up a cup of water. Now, if we think about the risk of the runners who picked up a cup of water in the station not to finish the race, it should be significantly decreased compared to the runners at the beginning of the race. And the reason is that merely knowing that they picked up a cup of water suggests that they arrived to the 40 kilometer of the race and they have only 2 kilometers to go. How do we go back to the setting of vaccinated and unvaccinated women? The vaccinated women are those runners who arrived and picked up a cup of water in the station. They were vaccinated late in their pregnancy, which means that they have a much better chance for positive outcomes. The unvaccinated women are the women at the start of the race because they have the entire race to go. Now, what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that when you consider all of these papers that I mentioned, all of these studies that I mentioned, in which the outcomes of the vaccinated pregnant women and the unvaccinated pregnant women are the same, that's entirely against what we expect. We would expect a much more favorable outcomes for the vaccinated women. This suggests to me that the vaccine may have a negative impact on the pregnancy outcomes of vaccinated women. And we should expect health authorities to actively collect safety data on pregnancy outcomes and the potential impact of COVID-19 vaccines on them, and stop with the irresponsible recommendations that pregnant women should be vaccinated until appropriate data is being collected and analyzed. Thank you for your attention.